Hi and welcome to Abe's Wilderness Gear. Today in this video I'm going to be showing you how to turn a regular Mora Classic sheath, wrap it in leather, and attach a leather lanyard and turn it into something like this. As you can see on the back of the knife, there's this little welt. You can see the stitching alongside it, and it's form-fitting to the plastic sheath itself. The materials you're going to be needing for this project: some leather, got some cowhide right here, and you don't need it to be too thick, just pliable, not too thick, not too thin, about that thickness. You're going to want some scissors, you're going to want some string. Now this is wax string. I think it's polyester, something along the lines of something lightweight yet durable. I want a needle. S-curve needles work very well for leather making, for leather projects, because as you're sewing, push it through so you have an easy puncture. Additionally, you're going to want some epoxy, a good old strong glue, a two-part epoxy with a little cardboard and something to stir it with. Now, you want to take the sheath, lay it flat on your piece of leather. Take the leather and I'm just going to pinch it on both ends until I have it encased in some leather. You want about an inch left over on each flap. This is one flap and this is another flap. Left over so you're not stuck with just a little as you're sewing. You have enough to pull. You want to be able to pull close the leather around the sheath as you sew. Okay, and also you want to be able to have a little bit left over at the end that you can cut, so that you don't end up having too little at the end. So here we have about 5 inches of working leather, enough to wrap this way. And then here, I'm going to measure, we have about 7.5 inches. Plenty of working leather to work with, and I'm going to cut it. I'm going to show you how it's done. Okay, now we have the leather piece cut out, like so. We're going to take the felt end of the leather, we're going to place the sheath on it like so. Now, you don't need the sticker anymore, so you can just peel it right off. Set that aside. Okay, so as you can see, when it comes to the top here, we're going to be laying it, we're going to be keeping it flush, the very top of the sheath, just like so. There's this outer layer of leather, and then there's the plastic sheath on the inside, and it stays just fine. Wrap it. You want to pinch it. What I did last time for this knife right here is I started from the very end of the sheath, and you start sewing. So I'm going to take my sinew, and you want to start at the very end, and take your needle and start pinching the sheath as you're sewing. Okay, now I've made some stitchings along the end of the sheath. You want it to be snug, even at this point. You want it to be fairly tight around the sheath. That is what's going to give the form to the sheath. As you can see right here, you see the The difference in the curvature, you want to keep your leather tight in order to accomplish that contour of the sheath. The kind of stitching, the style of stitching that I'm doing is double stitching, and you're going to want to do double stitching. You want to go through the same hole you've been through and go over the same hole twice. And I'll show you what it looks like. So now simply take the leather sheath off of the plastic sheath, and you want to just wiggle it off. It's going to be a little tight. And take your 2-part epoxy glue. I'm showing you right now. Take your compounds, piece of cardboard. You want to simply place your glue. Equal amounts of both solutions. Now we're simply going to stir. You want to mix it up really, really well. The more you mix it up, the better it'll harden. However, if you have, say, a 15-minute hardening epoxy glue, you want to do this fairly quick. So that's what I'm doing. Mix it up real well. Take your sheath, take your epoxy glue, simply paste it on. Paste it onto the sheath. Alright. Now we're going to, you want to be careful here. You want to make sure that the stitched part is going on the side where the button clip or the belt clip is going to be. You want to simply slide it in. If at all possible, try to keep the glue from getting on the leather. It's going to be snug, but it's okay. Use the table to push in the sheath. Okay, so now I've pushed up the leather as far as it can go up the sheath, and it has dried. Now, I've encountered a problem with this, and I didn't allow enough leather to start out with on the edges. So the leather, through the sewing process, it shrunk a little. So what I'm going to do to fix this and make this look aesthetically pleasing is I am going to cut off about right here. There's a natural little curvature on the plastic sheath. I'm going to cut right beneath it. I'm going to take off the excess leather right up to where the stitching stops, and then I'm going to reattach about that much, a whole other piece of leather wrap around. It's going to be really pretty. We've got the sheath, and I'm marking a line down for where that little bump on the sheath starts to where I want to cut it. Make a straight line all the way around. Now that the line is cut, I'm simply going to take a knife, careful that it doesn't slip in your hands, and just go in a motion, cutting motion across the sheath. Not too much to where you're going to cut the plastic, just enough to cut into the leather. And then you simply peel it off once you've cut it. So if you have any excess epoxy glue, you can simply just peel it off with your fingers. It's no big deal whatsoever, and this is what it looks like so far. Cut a welt around the sheath. You don't want to go too far, too close to the stitching. From the stitching, leave about that much of a welt. So that's what I'm going to be doing right now. If you do not have a perfectly straight line, it is okay. Just go back and meticulously make every corner round and make the distance from the stitching to the welt the same distance all the way down. There we go. There we go. That looks about right. To take care of your loose ends from your stitching, you can simply do is singe the ends. It's kind of just like doing paracord so that it does not come undone. Do the same here. And don't let that little flame get too close to the knot. And you can just simply tap it out and it just melts. One extra layer right here to cover up this plastic right here. Okay, now I'm going to add the extra layer of leather. I'm going to wrap around right about right there, and it's going to be coming 2 inches from the top of the sheath right here. So I'm going to measure that out, 2 inches. You want to make sure that right here, this is as straight as possible, so that when you lay it down, it's going to be a straight, exactly straight line coming down this way and coming down this way. So making sure my ends are straight. The length and the width of the leather to start out with for the sheath, it was a 5x7. The 5 inches was how much leather did I need to wrap both sides together. So I'm going to go back and do 5 inches. Okay, so I have my 2 inches, my 5 inches piece of leather, and I'm placing it directly on here so that I can fold it up, pinch, and sew.